In just a few years' time, we could have an 86-year-old sitting in the Oval Office. Last November, US President Joe Biden turned 80, and this week he announced he is running again for the top job. It's a fascinating year ahead in US politics. Joining us from the United States, Professor Peter Matthews from Cypress College in California. Morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Let's start with Joe Biden. Of course, we heard the news that he'll be here in 3.5 weeks as part of the Quad Leaders Summit, but he's running again.
Yes, indeed. And he's the oldest president we've ever had, and quite remarkable with the accomplishments, I thought, overall in the last couple of years. You know, the things he got passed through Congress, including a big spending bill on investment and the environment. So we'll have to see how the people look at him. There is a certain number of Americans that are concerned about his age. Don't forget, if his chief rival, if it's Donald Trump, he's going to be only 4 years younger than President Biden. So he's up there as well. And the question is, can they do the job as far as their energy, their mental acumen? I think so far Biden has been doing quite well, but we'll have to see how things go.
It's a bit of an indictment on the political state of affairs, isn't it, the United States, that you do have, and nothing against Joe Biden, of course. If you look at his career, it has been a superb career, and Donald Trump's only a couple of years younger. But there are no Bill Clintons or JFKs. There are none of these younger people coming through, or at least it doesn't appear so from outside looking in.
That is so true, especially at this moment in time. And part of it, Tim, has to do with the funding of these campaigns. It just takes so much money to be raised to be able to be viable in the presidential race, and so much of time and commitment that many younger people who could run if they had the funding available. Let's say we had public financing of elections, free and equal airtime on television. More people could get involved and could run, and more talent would come to the top, and you wouldn't have to just rely on very older and experienced people with lots of fundraising base. And that's the real problem. It boils down to money in politics once again. And it's a problem for right now. But, you know, let's see how things go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the United States and South Korea strengthened ties during the week to counter North Korea.
Yes, they did. The U.S. is talking about bringing in a nuclear submarine to South Korea. And I'm a little concerned about this because rather than escalating the Cold War on the peninsula, we should try to work things out. For example, when Bill Clinton was in office, he brought in the agreed framework with North Korea, according to which North Korea agreed to shut down its heavy water nuclear reactors that the Soviets built for them in exchange for the U.S. providing light water reactors and other kinds of fuel that's less expensive, and eventually to keep North Korea from gaining nuclear fissionable materials to produce bombs. And that was working for several years until President George Bush came in and basically withdrew from the deal overall. And that has escalated, and the axis of evil speech also that Bush had made, putting North Korea on the axis of evil with Iran and Iraq, that kind of rattled them a bit, and they got aggressive on things, saying they're going to build up their nuclear weapons stockpile, and they did it. This has to be reduced because, again, we don't want proliferation of nuclear weapons all over the world. That's a real problem.
Now, we just mentioned generational politics. One man that is quite young, really, Ron DeSantis, he's set to jump into the 2024 presidential fray. That's just a few weeks away. The Florida governor poised to launch his presidential exploratory committee then.
Yes, he's only in his mid-40s and pretty vigorous. But the thing is that he's got a substantial amount of support of the Republican voters right now, not quite as much as President Trump. But that's going to make the party divided quite a bit. When there's a hardcore, hard-fought primary like this, it could actually weaken the party for the general election. But we're about democracy. We believe in everyone running who wants to get their ideas out there, and we shouldn't discourage them. But here's something else that DeSantis got into, that's kind of drawing him down a little bit. And that is he got into a big tiff with Disney, the biggest employer, I think one of the biggest employers in Florida, the Disney company. And they had mentioned they didn't like his Don't Say Gay bill that he passed and got through the legislature. And he didn't like that. And the Disney workers got the company to speak out against it. And DeSantis got really upset at that and started taking the revenge on Disney by trying to raise their taxes and taking away their power from self-ruling that area, which they had agreements for many decades. This became a big struggle between Disney and him now, which cannot really help his campaign. And it's unfortunate in a sense for him. But we'll have to see how that goes as well. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, win first Speaker Kevin McCarthy in relation to that debt ceiling crisis.
Yes, he was able to get a fractious Republican Party in the House to come together, and 217 Republicans voted for it, the settlement, debt ceiling increase, as well as cuts in social programs, and against 215 Democrats who voted against it. and a couple of Republicans who abstained. So he was able to get it through. But the problem is he had to insist on social program cuts from his point of view, which includes cutting benefits for veterans. It includes cutting food stamps. It includes cutting Head Start for young children, education. And that's not going to go well with the American public. At least 2/3 of the public are against those cuts. But McCarthy had to put that through because of his right-wing, extreme right-wing MAGA faction of his party. And when it comes to actually passing it through the Senate and the president to sign it, it won't happen. So he's going to have to figure out a way to negotiate this somehow to get the debt ceiling increased. He did increase it by $1.5 trillion in that particular package. But if he doesn't get that increased and agree with Biden on doing it the way Biden wants as well, there'll be a stalemate, and it's going to jeopardize the American economic system, the world system. It's going to jeopardize our whole, in terms of being credible. It can actually reduce our credibility in terms of our finances, and that will really hurt the economy overall.
Now, Peter, what did you make of the appeals court rejecting Donald Trump's effort to block Mike Pence from testifying in the January 6 probe?
That was very significant because Mike Pence, as they say, a heartbeat away from the presidency, he was the man right next to the president most of the time. He knew what was going on, and he testified for 5 hours when that was quite remarkable because that means that something has been revealed about what he knew regarding President Trump and President Trump's motives in trying to get those, when he's been accused of inciting the insurrectionists. And Pence would know what kind of statements that Trump made to him on that very day and even the day before that could possibly implicate Trump as being having intention, do things like get the government, have those insightful people insurrect and just stop the counting of the electoral votes. So if he's been shown to intentionally obstruct Congress or obstruct the process of democracy, then Trump's in real big trouble. And Pence is the one person this testimony could really do him in on that particular point, especially.
Peter, finally, and I don't like to finish on a note like this, but it's leading our news bulletins this morning yet again. And we go through this awful dark cycle so often. Another shooting in the United States, in Texas, 5 people, including an 8-year-old boy.
Just again, there's no words to describe it besides horrendous, and even more so when you think of a little innocent 8-year-old boy and his family, I believe, because this man was shooting his AR-15 in his yard, and the neighbor came over and said, please turn it down. We can't, you're disturbing the baby that's trying to sleep. And instead, the guy goes in there, this gunman, and he just starts shooting away at the family and kills 5 people and injures many, many more. And it's just, what can we say, Tim? We've got to get a handle on this. And the politicians are the only one that have the power to do something about it by having sensible gun reform, including the banning of these semi-automatic weapons like the AR-15 and other things like licensing and background checks and many other things, waiting periods that you have in Australia. We need to get some common sense over here. And the American people have to get up, rise up peacefully and ask the politicians to do this. That's to be done immediately, or more innocent people will die like this child.
Oh, absolutely. Unless they can get some handle of the way it all operates, the way the NRA interact with politics. It's a difficult one, but boy, oh boy, it's very hard to watch. Peter, always good to chat. We'll do it again next week.
You bet. Thank you, Tim.